Hello, on behalf of the City of Abbotsford and Abbotsford City Council, I am honored to be here to commemorate the National Day of Mourning in recognition of injured or fallen workers. It is important for us to commemorate the National Day of Mourning, a time to publicly remember lost co-workers, friends, and family, to reflect on our commitment to workplace safety. Canada was the first country to formally recognize this day, and today it is observed in nearly 100 countries throughout the world. Today, we extend our sympathies to all those joining us virtually who have lost loved ones on the job. No words can take away your sorrow, and no words or action can make up for what you have lost. But today, we remember and reflect on a past we cannot change. We must look toward a future that is ours to determine. The best way to pay tribute to those we remember is to continue to strive for safer and healthier workplaces through education, cooperation, and action. Workplace accidents and injuries have a cause, and by identifying these causes, we can work on finding solutions and preventing similar incidents from happening in the future. We owe it to the victims of workplace accidents not to make the same mistake twice. As leaders, employers, unions, and governments, we must continue to ensure that our workers know that we stand behind them in working safely. We all have a responsibility to make sure that workers from every kind of occupation are aware and informed of their absolute right to safety in their place of work. To this end, we must also ensure that our young and new workers understand this pledge. We know that young people may be more likely to underestimate risks, especially in large operations. And when they first enter the workplace, young people may be much less likely to challenge a supervisor if a work situation seems hazardous. So we have to make sure collectively that when our sons and our daughters contemplate their first job, they know they have the right to be provided with safe work environment. And they're aware of their right to speak if they feel a workplace presents a danger. In order to maintain this culture as workers ourselves, we must always keep safety on the job as a measure above all else. So let's make this National Day of Mourning the day where we renew our commitment to promoting health and safety in the workplace, to reaffirm our commitment to preventing accidents and illnesses, and being aware of the potential hazards in our working environments. Finally, let's do whatever it takes so that everyone can come home safe and sound at the end of their workday. It is now my privilege to introduce David Vander Gulik, representative from Abbotsford Fire Rescue Services, to say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor Braun. On this National Day of Mourning, Abbotsford Firefighters Association, IAFF Local 2864, remembers and honors the men and women who have lost their lives or were severely injured due to a workplace tragedy. Local 2864 pays respect to our fallen brothers, Dean Larrabee and Martin Sunderland, who paid the ultimate sacrifice. We also honor the many families and friends who have been deeply affected by these tragedies. Today, we collectively renew our commitment to improve health and safety in the workplace and prevent further injuries, illnesses, and deaths. Firefighters have been working together with our employers and health and safety partners to improve awareness and prevention of work-related illnesses, specifically education of members, and advances in technology are helping to reduce job-related cancers and diseases. Every worker has the right to return home safe and sound at the end of each workday.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Avneet, and I would just like to start off by saying thank you for everyone for being here as we remember and honor those lives lost due to a workplace tragedy. Today, I would like to share my story in the hopes that it resonates and is kept in mind as we think about the significance of workers' lives. I am the daughter of two immigrant parents who moved here in the late 1990s to give their future families a better life. My parents were engaged. My mom came before my dad. She worked on a farm, and my dad soon joined her that year. Their life was bleak, and they were paid $1 a day. They worked for 8 months that year without seeing much money. When my parents had had enough, they moved into a basement of their own. In time, my parents found work at a chicken slaughterhouse. My dad became a supervisor and my mom managed janitorial services. When my parents found out that I was on the way, they made a plan to send me to India to be in the care of their families so that they could continue to work full time and save money. In those years, they slept in shifts and did not get to see each other except on Sundays. When they had enough money saved, I was able to come back. My dad bought us a townhouse and they had 2 more kids. And even though they were working full time, I had a great childhood. My parents had 2 more kids, and when my brother, the youngest, was 10 months old, my mom regained work as a farm worker under a contractor. Tragedy struck on March 7th, 2007, when my mom's work transportation collided with 2 semi-trucks and flipped on the Fraser Valley Highway close to Mission. My mom and 3 other women, all mothers, daughters, and some even grandmothers, lost their lives that day, and it left 14 impaired for life. As a 7-year-old child, I had no idea what had happened. It was not until I was 13 or 14 that I began to piece together all the bits of information to get a grasp of exactly why or how this had happened. And it was not until I was 17 I began to understand the nature of society and the role of the blue-collar worker that was heavily dismissed as being replaceable and unimportant work. The transportation of farm workers was cheap. It was an old van with no seatbelts and a bench in the trunk space added for extra seating. That day, that van carried 21 workers. The driver of the van was a woman that held no license to be driving it in the first place, and she was on her phone at the time of the incident. After 2 appeals, the incident was dismissed as an accident, at no fault of the owner of the van or the contractor. Every year since 2007, on March 7th, we have held a candlelight for the workers that have lost their lives in Canada due to workplace safety regulations not being met or not being there in the first place. Every year since then, I have had to make a speech about what I have lost, what I have learned that year, and how we can all somehow collectively make a change. In all these years, by entering the workforce and learning the rates of living and having a family, I have realized that profit for a business can never account for the loss of a life. I began to read about mundane existence and the alienation of our labor that workers face. It makes me somewhat proud and yet so anxious and upset knowing that my mother was just trying to provide for us a better life when she died. What hurts the most is knowing that my parents placed making a living over having a life. I learned that for vulnerable groups like immigrants, hard work isn't a choice, and that the idea that capitalism proposes, that with hard work the world is yours, is just that. An idea that has been projected to workers forever, to keep them meaninglessly drowning themselves in alienated labor. Blue-collar and minimum wage workers begin every day with the promise of a new life, a better life, with more materials and perhaps a bigger house. And each day they watch as they are further away from their goals as the moment they started. And just like that, they begin the next day and they keep trying. For years, I had that same work ethic, and I believe that inheriting my father's work ethic was a positive attribute. Though this may seem odd, I realized that my dad and I never had anything to relate to one another about or felt comfortable speaking about until I joined the workforce and got a full-time job. We could finally talk about what it meant to be alienated from our work, our product, our process, our co-workers, and even ourselves. My dad has never talked about the incident directly, and he never shows any emotion over it. Exactly 12 days after my mom's death, he went back to work and has never taken a day off or sick leave because he has been conditioned to believe that the only way to get ahead or be successful is by doing just that. The only way someone coming from nothing could get ahead on a minimum wage job is by working their entire life and scrounging to save what little they have. Even then, they must know how to invest their money or how to save it. And sadly, these things are not taught to us in schools, so many of us are doomed to live paycheck to paycheck. If there's anything I learned from my experience in this entire debacle, it is that firstly, my experience was not a unique one, as I have met many others with very similar stories. Secondly, I have come to understand that not all work is perceived the same in society, although it should be. And finally, if there's anything to take away from my situation, it's to understand that work should not become life. What truly matters is what you cannot gain from monetary or material gain, like family and good friends. The lesson comes from understanding that we will never find the end marker of success. There will always be something that we do not physically have that we are constantly being pushed to purchase to feel better or more fulfilled as individuals. So today and onwards, my dad and I have made it our life's mission to work with the BC Federation of Labour and WorkSafe to ensure that workers have more rights and ensure that budget cuts do not mean eradicating workplace safety. This is not only a day to pay reverence, but also to collectively remember and renew our commitment to improving health and safety in the workplace to prevent further injury, illness, or death. Thank you everyone for your time.
Hello, I'm Jessica Berglund, the Director of Occupational Health and Safety Investigations at WorkSafe BC. It's my privilege to say a few words on this day of mourning as we remember all those who have died because of workplace injury and disease. Last year in British Columbia, 151 workers lost their lives because of their work. Sadly, this is an increase from the 140 work-related deaths in 2019. More recently, we lost several workers to traumatic workplace injury in February and March of this year, which occurred in a variety of industries throughout the province. Each of their losses is a tragedy that's felt by so many families, friends, co-workers, and communities. In my area of investigations, I've seen the devastating consequences of these tragedies, and I've also seen that many of these deaths could have been prevented. At WorkSafe BC, we work diligently to prevent workplace injury, disease, and death through education, consultation, and enforcement. But we all share in this responsibility. Whether you're an employer, worker, union representative, or part of an industry association, we all have a part to play in keeping workplaces safe so that these terrible losses don't happen. Employers have the legal responsibility to provide a healthy and safe workplace for their workers. And workers have the right to expect a healthy and safe workplace and to be properly trained and to refuse unsafe work. No matter what the industry, employers need to ensure that they set up and maintain strong health and safety plans so that workers can understand and follow even as conditions change. We have seen the importance of this with the pandemic over the past year, with the responsibility of employers to develop and update their COVID-19 safety plans, for workers to follow these plans and ask questions if anything is unclear, and for WorkSafe BC to ensure these safety plans are maintained in all BC workplaces. Today, as we remember and honor the many people in BC who have lost their lives while earning their livelihoods, let's commit to working together, doing everything we can every single day to make sure every worker in this province goes home from work in the same condition as when they arrived. Let's remind ourselves that health and safety must be our priority every day of the year, because even one workplace death is one too many. Thank you.